Hello, this is Thought for the Day for Friday the 18th of September, and today we're looking at Psalm 1. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked, they are like the chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. On Monday the 23rd of March, Graham led us in our very first Thought for the Day, Psalm 27, which he looked at over 3 days. We started with Psalm 27 because it seemed to have so much to say to us during that strange time. We then moved on to Psalm 30, which also seemed very relevant, and after that we must have realised that every psalm had something to say to us, so we started to follow them in order. And I don't think that anyone imagined that we would reach Psalm 150, but that's what happened on Wednesday as Helen led us in that last noisy psalm of praise. To me, many of these psalms over the last few months have helped to anchor my anxious heart in God and his promises instead of being weighed down with anxiety all the time. But having reached the end, we're now going to go back to the beginning and look at the ones we haven't covered yet on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays from now on. And today it's Psalm 1, which is a bit of an introduction, I think, to the whole book of Psalms. And a question to start with. Is our life a matter of circumstances, of the right opportunities coming along? For example, someone who was born into a rich family, or who has parents who encourage them, or who has good health, or who lives in a certain country, may be thought to be more likely to have a good life than someone with a different set of circumstances. Psalm 1 adds another dimension, and it's not just our circumstances that affect our lives, but it's also our choices. We all have to make choices every day. Sometimes they're easy choices. What shall I wear today? Although even that can be difficult for some of us. How can I spend my free time today? Which urgent task should I tackle first? Shall I ring person X or not, or send them a text or an email? Sometimes, of course, they're bigger choices. What school would my child be happiest in? Shall I accept this new job or not? Choices have to be made all the time. They affect our lives and the lives of others. And today's psalm is about a very important choice, maybe the most important. Are we going to walk God's way or not? And first of all, we read about how we should not live if we are to walk God's way. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. Being out of step can be hard. Going against the crowd can be hard. It's especially hard sometimes not to join in with mockers or gossip. But, says this psalm, choosing to live differently like this is the first step to being blessed. And verse 2 tells us the second step, delighting in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. In our day we could interpret this as finding out how God wants us to live and then living like that. So, what pleases the Lord? How does he want us to live? And we'll think about 2 things briefly which are highlighted in the New Testament. Firstly, faith, total trust in God. In Hebrews 11 verse 6 it says, without faith it is impossible to please God. That verse is in the middle of a whole chapter full of people who had difficult lives and often made mistakes, but were all commended for their faith. Faith is what pleases God, trust in him. And the biggest step of faith we can make is trusting that Jesus is the one who showed us the way to God, who died to forgive us and give us this new life, and accepting his new life through faith. And secondly, love, learning to love God and love each other. Let's remind ourselves of part of the great chapter on love, 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonour others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So perhaps the equivalent for us today to meditating on God's law is discovering how to put our faith into action and how to love more. And what is the consequence of this choice? The psalm says that those who live in this way are blessed. They're like a tree planted by the water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. This is the time of year to enjoy the apple harvest, or maybe pears, perhaps even grapes. Perhaps you have a fruit tree in your garden, or a neighbour who's keen to pass on some of their surplus. But with the harvest comes the time of the leaves changing colour and eventually falling. The psalm says a person who delights in God is not like that. They're like a tree whose leaf doesn't wither. Unlike our apple trees, they can keep being fruitful continuously, because this fruit doesn't come from their own strength but from God. The psalm then moves on to the consequences of taking the alternative choice, going our own way, ignoring God. It says that people who make this choice are like chaff that the wind blows away. And the consequences of the two choices are summarized in the final verse. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. So as we begin this new journey from the beginning of the Psalms, am I going to make an active choice to spend time with God, meditate on his word, and find out what pleases him? And to finish with the verse from Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6 again, he rewards those who earnestly seek him.